welcome back to Sextra,
where we talk about sex and all the extras.
I'm Honey.
And I'm Maria.
And today we're going to talk about STIs.
Oh, yeah.
So exciting. So glad we're here. We made it to this topic.
The amount of times that I feel like we've said, like, oh, yeah, like, we want to talk about this at some point. We want to make an episode about this at some point. About this specific topic.
Yeah.
So many times. But it's finally here.
Yeah, so we're going to talk a little bit about each STI. And mainly about my STI, which is herpes, in case you guys didn't know.
Honey's second coming out.
Yeah. Go watch the video I made on our Instagram about it, but actually don't, because we're probably going to get more into detail in this episode. But yeah, we're just going to talk about our own experiences and also just a bit about like the technicalities of STIs and how to avoid getting them and how to end stigma about them overall. So yeah, let's get into it.
Yeah, so for the segment we wanted to kind of see where you guys were at in terms of STIs, like your thoughts, your experiences with them or whatever. So we did a few polls to kind of gauge what was up. Yeah. So should we just kind of go through them? Okay, so the first question we asked, have you ever had an STI? And 72.6% of people said no. And 23.8% of people said yes.
These people are lying.
I mean, do you reckon?
Yeah.
Is it higher than, like, do you know the sort of average stat?
Well, I mean, herpes alone, 2 in 3 people have it by the time they're 25.
Oh, yeah, but so many people, yeah, I'm guessing, like, these people either don't know they've ever had one.
Yeah.
Or, you know, haven't ever been tested. Or
yeah, exactly.
Don't know that cold sores is herpes, which is an STI. That's okay. No judgment in this episode, honey.
No judgment at all. I'm not. I'm just saying. We know. It's okay.
I feel like Honey's tolerance for, like, people not knowing shit about STIs is just, like, she doesn't take it.
I don't have time for it anymore. I've had enough. Has herpes for, like, 6 months. And it's just like fed up of everyone else's bullshit, even though I didn't know anything about it before. But we'll get into it. So the next thing we asked is, are you regularly tested for STIs? And 58.6% of people said yes, and 41.4% of people said no, which is like, that's kind of to be expected. I did expect it to be pretty balanced of like who gets tested.
So then, like, now we see the answer to our
other
question. Around 42% of people aren't getting regular tested of those of the 72% that said that they've never had an STI.
Yeah, so
you wouldn't know.
Guess you wouldn't know. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and then we asked, are STIs a big deal to you? And 45% of people said yes, and 55% of people said no. So the majority said no, which is quite surprising.
Yeah, true.
I guess it can go either one or two directions though. Like, maybe they're not a big deal for you because you're like constantly having unsafe sex, therefore they're not a big deal to you, clearly.
Yeah.
Or also, like, they're not a big deal to you in, like, oh, I'm so woke and, like,
I know so much
about
and, like,
STIs. The stigma don't get to me. So I don't know which one they were on, you know, like which one they were relating to, but
yeah, well, we can get into our own experiences with that. The next one is, did you learn about STIs in school? Guess what the answer to this one was? Who would have guessed? 23.9% of people said yes, and 76% said no.
Yeah, our education on STIs is a little bit
terrible.
Yeah, we talked a little bit more about it on Speak On, a podcast called Speak On. We have an episode about sex ed there, but on there, yeah, we talked a little bit about how, like, at least our education was very much like they just showed us these like horrible pictures of like kind of like worst case scenario, like these guys, you know, like the ones that they put on cigarette packets, like it was that but for STDs, and it's like makes you think that it's like a
really
fantasy kind of thing, like something that wouldn't happen to you, like it's so horrible that it's like a horror story, like something that happens to like the unlucky few, and therefore like mystifies sex and like STIs in a really weird way when they're just like a common cold almost, you know, you can almost get it like that. So it's like I don't know, I just think it's a little bit unrealistic and a little bit like just not really educating you, because education is about like facts and truth.
It doesn't prepare you for anything. Like it's ignoring the fact that STIs are a massive part of sex, an inevitable part of sex, and that's not a reason to not have sex, and also everyone's gonna have sex, so we should just learn about these things to like make it more normalized. But yeah, obviously we will get more into this. The next question: what's scarier, getting someone pregnant or getting an STI? And 38% said STIs and 62% said pregnancy.
That's pretty high for STIs. I mean, like, I guess it's because like people really?
No, I so expected that. Like
what are you more scared of?
I mean, I already have an STI.
Exactly. So obviously you're more scared of pregnancy. Like that's what I'm saying. I think like nearly 40% of people saying they're more scared of getting an STD than pregnant. That's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah,
in my personal opinion, because like, what? I mean, I guess you can just abort it. I do remember one time, like I talked to one of our friends about it. I won't name and shame because it's quite a shameful thing, actually. We were just, this was around the time, like, I think you got chlamydia, and it was like the, you know, like we were
the thing at the time,
the talk of the town. No, but like people were talking about STDs around that time. I remember having a few conversations about it, and we were just talking about it, and I was like, oh yeah, like what would you rather get, chlamydia or get pregnant? Our friend was like, oh, to be honest, like they're kind of the same, like I can just like get rid of it. Yeah, which I guess is true, but
it is true. But I think I mean getting rid of chlamydia is a lot less of like a moral issue than than abortion. Not that I'm like, you know what I mean, obviously I'm pro-choice, but anyway, this is a massive tangent, but
yeah, sorry for that. But that was to say that I feel like people's minds genuinely do go to like, oh, would I rather get AIDS and die or get pregnant and get an abortion?
Yeah.
In which case, like, the obvious choice surely is the abortion. But yeah, this is what I mean. Like, I feel like it's because STIs are very like horrified, or I don't know what the word is.
Just like worst case
scenario. But nowadays it's very unlikely to die of HIV. You can take medication you can take medication that literally essentially makes it like not transferable, or I'm not that well versed on it. I don't know whether you know more about it. I do really want to do an episode with like to talk about specifically HIV and all of that. I think that would be really interesting. But
no, it's so unlikely, especially in like the country that we live in. You can take antiretroviral medication to stop HIV from progressing into AIDS, and from AIDS from progressing through different stages of AIDS. But yeah, anyway, also skipping ahead again, but a massive reason why it's important to get tested is the longer you have an STI without knowing, the worse it's going to be for you in the long run, regardless of whether it's chlamydia or HIV. So this is why you need to get tested regularly to find out and catch things and stop them from progressing into worse things. Anyway, next question.
Okay, next question. Do you do your best to protect against STIs? And 4% of people said yes, and the rest said no.
Okay. Well, I was fascinated by these answers.
I mean, I feel like everyone would like to say that they do try their best.
I will openly admit to the fact that before I had herpes, I didn't try my best.
Yeah, I would also admit that I definitely did not try my best either, but I feel like a lot of people would be like, oh, well, yeah, I obviously try my best. Like, it just doesn't always work out that way, but I try my best.
Yeah.
It's like, do you?
Sure.
Should we be trying harder?
Yeah. Yeah, so hence why I asked some follow-up questions. Because I was like, I just want to call some people out here. I was just in that kind of mood. So I asked, do you always use condoms or dental dams? To which 65% of people said no.
So everyone's really doing their best.
Just answers my question immediately.
I was gonna say, in all fairness, like, I would answer no to that, but that doesn't mean I'm having unsafe sex.
Yeah, that's true. It depends, like, if you're having regular sex with one person. Yeah, so I also asked, do you use condoms or dental dams for oral sex? And 9.3% of people said yes.
Yeah, well, I've never used a condom personally for oral sex ever in my life.
Yeah, I mean, I have, but only recently.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
We can get into it. We'll get into the details, guys. Don't worry.
Okay, well, straight up also asked, have you ever had unprotected sex? 96.2% of people said yes, so doing their best, You're doing your best, aren't you?
I mean, obviously we are joking. Like, we know stuff happens in the moment.
Also, we are in that category. Yeah. Like, all this judgment is coming, like, to myself too. Like, it's really not actual judgment. You know?
Fully. But it's just kind of funny that we all said we were doing our best, but in reality, we all know we're not. And then I was like wondering if people are protected for if they're prepared for safe sex, as in, do they like carry protection with them? And it was like pretty 50-50 on this one, which again, I feel like there's a whole thing as well that guys should have condoms at all times and girls never really have them. So
what do you have opinions on that?
No, not really. I mean, I literally only bought condoms like for maybe the first time the other day.
Oh wow.
Yeah, because I've just always used free ones.
Okay, 50-50. Pretty good. And then, do you always bring up protection before sex? And 63% of people said that they do.
Yeah.
So, like, that's pretty good. That's pretty surprising to me. Like, I would think that it was lower.
Yeah, same. Do you, in your, obviously not with your boyfriend, but have you ever... in your life, have you ever said the word condom to someone during sex?
Actually, no, I actually never have.
Ever?
I've never talked about protection before having sex with someone. Except, like, the time after I lost my virginity, like my straight virginity, I, like, told the guy, I was like, oh, don't you think we should have used a condom? And then he was like, yeah, and then the next time we used a condom. But then, like, the time after that we didn't. And the time after that we didn't. And we kind of just never did again. Yeah. Or maybe we did a couple times, but... And that I genuinely think that's the only time. And then when, like, my boyfriend's really quite on it with these sorts of things. Like, he's not about to just pull out or anything. Like, he's not gonna risk it at all. So one time I lost my pill and, like, we used condoms then, but that's, like, the only time I've ever had a conversation, like...
But it's more from, like, a pregnancy perspective.
Yeah, no, and, yeah, the boyfriend one, and then, like, the other times it... Yeah, I guess it was a pregnancy. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Did you bring it up, like, before at all, like before the whole herpes thing?
Yeah.
Were you in the habit of bringing it up before?
If it was like just a random not a random person, but if it was like a casual partner, then yeah. But if it was a regular partner, we never really use condoms.
Fair enough.
But as in not like
But, like,
a boyfriend.
would you bring it up?
Not like a boyfriend. Yeah. A couple of times. Not every time. If they didn't bring it up, I probably would have said something. But I'd usually wait for the other person to bring it up.
Yeah, fair enough.
Last one. Do you ask your partners about their STI or testing history? And 61% said yes, and 39% said no. Again.
I'm pretty surprised about that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because as in, like, I'm not surprised if it's, like, someone that you're seeing, like, regularly and stuff, and, like, you're like, telling each other shit about your lives. But if it was, like, a one-night stand or, like, a stranger, I've never done that. Ever in my life. Like, have I talked to someone about being tested?
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't offer up that information, I don't think.
Yeah. A stranger. But I probably would have used a condom with a stranger instead of just talking to them about it. So, yeah. But I mean, anyway, let's get into the main episode. Let's talk about our experience with STIs. And I don't know, I mean, we've both had chlamydia, as we have stated previously, I'm very sure. And I feel like neither of us really let that affect how we went on with our lives from then on.
Yeah.
So, thoughts, feelings around getting chlamydia, how you felt at the time, all of that lovely stuff.
Well, I kind of was like, oh shit, like, this actually happened to me. Like, I was quite surprised, like, genuinely quite shocked, which I don't really understand why, but I don't know, I wasn't really, like, that embarrassed. Like, I don't really remember feeling any, like, bad feelings. I don't even remember being, like, that scared about having to tell the people. Like, I don't remember caring that much. Like, I do remember it being like, oh god, that's so awkward. Like, it was awkward, but it wasn't even, like, that extreme. Like, I remember being quite, like, careless about it. And I think, like, my whole approach to it was really careless. Like, not even just the way I felt about it, but, like, then what I did after, and, like, how I just got it 3 times in a row because I just wasn't. Like, in my head, I literally couldn't care less, like, essentially. And, I don't know, I guess, like, it's good that I felt that way, because at least I didn't feel, like, all this shame and, like, all of this taintedness and, like, wow, I can never have sex again or whatever. But, like, I don't know, looking back, I do feel like I should have taken it a little bit more seriously and been like, yeah, right, like, I probably shouldn't be, like, messing about and, like, doing this, because, like, yeah, even though I can just get rid of it really easily, and I think because, like, my friends had it, I felt, like, a lot better. Like, I think if I would have been the first one, like, so yeah, maybe you should have told your experience first, but I think if I would have been the first one, like, it would have freaked me out a bit more. But I think because also, like, the whole vibe, like, everyone else's, like, all of our other friends and your approach or whatever was, like, quite chill about it. Like, that's how it made me feel so chill, I think.
Yeah. It always helps to, like, how other people experience the same thing, because then it's, like, you don't feel like a freak and you're not, like, alone in your experience. But yeah, I cried when I found out I had chlamydia. I remember so clearly where I was standing, the text, like, reading the text and being like, oh no. And I thought I had gonorrhea for ages, which I thought was worse, but they're kind of exactly the same thing. It just sounds worse, I think.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh no, and then I was like, oh, I have chlamydia. Oh, okay. But I mean, I still cried. And then when I went to the clinic and they told me I could just, like, take antibiotics, I was like, oh, okay, like, who cares? Literally, who cares? And then after that, like, while I was taking the medicine, I think I just thought it was quite funny.
Yeah, I remember I thought it was quite funny when I had it, like, especially because I got it 3 times. Like, I just thought that was pretty funny. I was like, god,
I
you're an
remember being
idiot.
so mad at you because you just didn't care. And you were just like, yeah, like, oh, I don't know. And then you guys found out that you could be infertile if you have it for more than 3 months. And then you were freaking out. And I was like, oh, now you care. Okay.
No, but yeah, another reason, you kind of already said it, but get tested regularly. Because if you do have chlamydia for like 3 months or longer undetected, it could like start fucking with your infertility, so you don't want that.
You can get pelvic inflammatory disease as well, and you also really don't want that.
Maybe we should give just like a little treatment kind of brief of
Oh, yeah.
chlamydia, just in case, like,
Okay. Yeah.
just information, for people to have. In the UK, they give 2 main ones. It's 3 pills, and it's, you take one that's like the 1 milligram in the first day, and then one that's 500 milligrams second day and 500 milligrams third day. And then on that one, you basically take the treatment, and then you can't have sex for another 7 days after that. And then for the other one, you take a pill every single day for 7 days.
Yeah, I had that one.
And then after that, you can't have sex while you're taking the treatment, but after that you can.
Oh, they told me to like still wait a week. I mean, I wasn't sleeping with anyone anyway, so I was like, whatever.
I think it's best to wait like at least 10 days with either one, just so it doesn't transfer.
Yeah, especially if you're having sex with someone, like, you're gonna just pass it backwards and forwards, which has happened to people that we know, so it's just a bit of a pain.
But it's quite simple, and like, you just go to a clinic, you literally do a little, they have in a lot of like student health services, or like a lot of clinics, they have like self-swabbing kits, and it's basically like a COVID test for your vagina, is how you put it. You literally just swab up your vag. I don't know what it's like for the penis. Do you just swab up like the pee hole or something?
Yeah, with some they put it inside, and then with others you do a pee test.
Oh yeah.
Or you can do a oral swab, but I mean.
Oh yeah, and you can get throat chlamydia. A lot of people don't know that. And anal chlamydia. I had
throat, vag, and anal, so the Holy Trinity. That's actually so good. Yeah. Anyway.
And just to prove that it's not sluts that get STDs, you don't have to be a hoe like me, like shagging 2 guys in one night to get it. It was like the second guy you'd ever slept with, and you got all 3 chlamydia. So
yeah, all 3 chlamydias. Yeah, no, it was fucked up. But I mean, who cares now?
But it's like, it can this is the thing, like, so many people associate STDs with like slutty people and people that sleep around and shit. But it's like, it can happen to you if you have sex one time.
Yeah, literally
one time, and it can happen to you.
Yeah, you can get herpes without even having sex.
Yeah, exactly.
That's just ridiculous. But yeah, anyway, should we maybe talk about like actually going to a clinic and what that's like, and then I can talk about how I found out I have herpes through that. Yeah, so I feel like a lot of people are really scared of going to clinics, which I'm so desensitized to it now that like I don't really care, but I do get that it is kind of a scary experience because you have to go and like literally tell them your whole sexual history and like what things you did in particular, and it's a stranger, and I don't know, like if you have a weird relationship with health professionals, which a lot of people do, then yeah, it's definitely a weird experience. But I love sexual health professionals so much. They're always so much more helpful than any other doctor. They're so kind, and they're always like really open-minded as well, because the amount of stuff that they hear and the amount of fucking genitals that they look at every single day, they just do not care. I don't know what, like, do you agree?
I also feel, I agree, and I feel like they always like divulge so much information when you go there. I feel like they're almost so conscious that people's like base of sexual health knowledge is so low that like they just want to get it all in your head like before you walk out the door or something. But yeah, no, I've had like really good experiences. Like they've always been really, really nice, really helpful, like genuinely seem like they want to like help me solve my problem. Like even recently I went with a problem that like I wasn't sure whether it was like sexual health related, but they were like really trying to help me to like come to my answer, even though it wasn't even their like thing, you know. I think like they are aware that people's sexual health like education is very low, so
Yeah.
they are trying to do the best that they can with like the very like small tools people have been already given. And...
Yeah. And like their limited funding.
Yeah.
And I feel like I can always ask them such stupid questions, or like something that I think is a stupid question, and they won't even bat an eyelid. They really do not care at all. So yeah, just for anyone who's like worried, I mean, obviously we're very lucky in the UK compared to other places, even compared to fucking America. I mean, America's like a fucking third world country, but yeah, we're so lucky in the UK, and we have the NHS, so that makes things so much better. But I can't speak for what it's like in other places, to be honest, but just for our UK people.
Yeah.
Actually, speaking of sexual health professionals, I didn't find out from a sexual health professional that I have herpes. And then I went home. I literally cried all the way home, which I never cry. I mean, I never cry, and I never cry in public. But I just had to wait for a week to find out. And they said they'd call me, but obviously they didn't call me to tell me. So after like a week, I was like, I
Yeah, because imagine that week you're like hanging on for dear life.
Literally all I was thinking about. I was trying to manifest that I didn't have herpes.
Yeah.
I was like, when I wake up, I'm not gonna have herpes. And I was like, oh, maybe it's just like a friction burn from like my vibrator or something. And literally all of my friends were being like, no, I'm sure you don't. But I was kind of just like, I know that I do, you know. Anyway, then I had another doctor's appointment about something else, and she was like, at the end of the call, she was like, oh, by the way, your test came back positive, and all she said was you should use condoms when you have sex. And I was just
like, oh yeah, that was dodge, the like that whole you finding out about herpes, like everything was just really like they just weren't giving you information and like not really telling you what you had to hear. Like I thought that was really bad.
I really had to like dig for information, and it was literally not until I went to an actual sexual health clinic that they told me stuff. And they have sexual health advisors in the UK who are actual angels, and they, even though like by this point, because it was quite late on, I already knew a lot of what I needed to know because I researched that shit like day and night, and have it seem like it was a normal thing, and they knew it was a normal thing. Because even though like I could talk to you guys about it and you're like, oh, we know it's like like everyone has herpes, it was like, I don't know, you don't know anyone else with herpes, so you don't know. I don't know, it was so shit as well, because I remember being like, oh, I have to like pretend like everything's fine, because otherwise like how can I have a sex and relationships podcast? No. But obviously I was like so not okay. It was so rough.
Well, it's like life-changing information about your health. Like, I feel like it's not to take away from the whole message of like we want to remove the stigma, and like really it isn't that big of a deal, but like it's still your health. It's still something that you're gonna live with every day. It's still something that like every time you have sex with someone, like you will think about. So
and I kind of just thought that like firstly I wasn't gonna have sex again, like ever. And secondly, even though I was like, oh, I know that loads of people have it and it's like not really a big deal or whatever, I still had like internalized shame about it because of the stigma that like you hear about herpes. And I feel like so many people have that as well, so yeah. But anyway, also just a bit of background on like treating herpes again. You can take antiviral medication when you're having outbreaks or like when you start getting symptoms, so that can help lessen the symptoms and like make you less infectious to other people. And now I'm taking daily antiviral medication because I was having loads of outbreaks. But yeah.
But with herpes, you don't like, it's not like you constantly have like sores on your vagina or like on your around your mouth or wherever it is. It's like you have little outbreaks where it comes out, and like most people, do they have like 1 or 2 a year, or like how?
Yeah, like 1 or 2 a year, but in your first year it takes a while for your body to produce antibodies to fight the virus, so you're more likely to have more frequent outbreaks. But yeah, and also it's kind of crazy. This is literally how I talked myself down from being like, this is a massive deal. It's firstly like finding out how many people have herpes, which is 70% by the age of 25, which is insane.
Yeah, that's
like you'll
so
have
high.
one kind of herpes, and that can be genital or oral, but they're both like a sexually transmitted disease technically. And also there's like 8 kinds of herpes. One of them is chickenpox.
Oh wow.
Which
I remember
everyone has chickenpox.
Yeah.
And because chickenpox is so common, your parents are like, well, get chickenpox so you don't have to get it again. You know what I mean? But it's like for herpes, like genital herpes, it's completely different. It's like, oh no, don't get that just because you get it through sex. But I was like encouraged to like rub my skin against my friend's skin when I was younger to get chickenpox. But it's like, why is it such a different standard for genital herpes? It's crazy. And another one is glandular fever. I already had glandular fever. I've had like half the kinds of herpes there are. So proud of myself.
Collect them all.
Yeah. I'm so close. But yeah, anyway, that was just kind of wild to me, like the different standards. And yeah, well, let's talk a bit about sex with herpes and just like stigma overall. Let's like move on to that side of the conversation, because yeah, STIs are just literally an infection like any other infection, and it's part of like a broader issue of stigma around sex in general and anything related to sex, that STIs are such a big deal, because even though chickenpox and herpes are like essentially very similar things, as I said, because one's associated with sex and one isn't, it's like a completely different thing.
I also think it's quite interesting because I think like health is something that people find quite like don't talk a lot about, or like unhealth, I guess. I don't know.
Unless
sickness.
You're me.
Yeah.
And it's like all I talk about.
But it's in like openly, and I think then like it being like having a sexual component as well, it's like there's that extra level of shame of like you're unhealthy and it's in a sexual way, so like you're extra dirty and extra tainted in some kind of way. So I do understand like why a lot of people like don't. It's not very open, and it is like still quite a taboo thing. But yeah, I think the quicker you can just start looking at it like it is just an infection, like a cold, like that is just inevitable, no matter how much like safeguarding you do around this, how clean you are, like. And
one of the health advisors that I saw about herpes actually was telling me the amount of men, not to call out men,
of course we never do that
never
on this
do
podcast.
That go to the sexual health clinic for something like chlamydia. They get their swab done, and the doctor's like, oh, you have like a sore on the inside of your penis, like your urethra, that's herpes, and they just have no idea. I think it's like a similar thing about how you're saying with health, is people are so, especially men, are like so stubborn about their health, whereas when I think about women, I'm like, as soon as there's something wrong with their health, they're like, oh, I need to get this sorted, versus like all the men in my life that I know, obviously I'm just speaking from personal experience, they're like, they will delay going to get it checked out as long as they possibly can. Which is again like why we should be getting tested, because these men, they don't know. They don't even know what it is. They don't understand, and they wouldn't even think to go get it checked out. So
yeah. So like in terms of the practicality of it, like actually navigating the sex world or whatever now, with your diagnosis. Okay, what's like the toughest part, do you think, about having it? Is it like the stigma, or like the thought of like what, like how people react, or is it more like the actual physically, like sometimes it just sucks, or like is it a mix of both? Like
at the start,
can you tell us a bit more about the experience?
At the start, it was very much like how people are going to perceive me, because I was like, I'm literally never going to have sex again. What am I going to do? How am I going to keep doing this podcast? And like even without the podcast, I feel like sex is just like a massive part of my identity, and like I love having sex, so I was like, that's a really sad thing to think about. And now it's definitely the physical side of it that's the worst part, because it's just like I've kind of accepted that I can't control how other people perceive me, and that's why I'm kind of just like, I don't have time for people who aren't educated, because like that's their problem, it's not my problem, versus the health thing is like very much my problem, and I want to be able to control it and like understand it more.
Yeah.
Also because I'm, as you know, I'm such a hypochondriac, so it's a kind of a pain, like literally and metaphorically. And that's the biggest thing, is like the other day I had sex with the guy. Again, guys don't know things, so and he was fingering me. Not to be too graphic, I've already talked to my mum about this, so that's like all that really matters. But it was like just too intense and like too much friction, and friction is one of the biggest things that can cause an outbreak. And I literally, all I could think during sex was, I'm gonna have an outbreak after this, and then I did, and it was just so annoying to have to deal with that. And I also got rejected the other day for having herpes while we were making out and like about to have sex, and I just didn't care at all. I was so proud of myself because I was like, I mean, it just shows me that you like, not that like it's all your fault that you don't know stuff, because I also didn't really know anything about herpes before I got it. Clearly that's how I got it in the first place. But like it's just not a good arrangement for me anymore.
So it's like almost, you know, a nice little filter in your dating life.
Yeah, it actually is. And all the people that I've talked to that are like okay with me having herpes or know a bit, there's like different levels to it. The people who know about it, the people that are like okay with me having herpes and they just want to ask questions or whatever, they want to have a conversation about it, they're good at having sex. But the people who know a bit about herpes already, they're amazing at having sex, which just proves that this is part of this should be an essential part of sex education, because it all comes together. Like, it's not just about learning STIs and being like, oh, this is what you take for herpes if you get herpes, and this is what you take for HIV and chlamydia. Like, these are all the medications. It's like, how can we understand that STIs and pregnancy and all of these things, it just comes along with sex. You can't have sex without thinking about these things, and if you are having sex without thinking about these things, then I don't think that's like an empathetic way to go about having sex, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because the people that I have sex with now, even though it's not like necessarily 100% this way with every single person, they have to have an understanding of like what I am bringing to the table and like what I'm experiencing to be okay with me having herpes. And we have to have that conversation before of like, well, we have to use a condom and this is like the risk. Like, they have to understand there is a bit of a risk even if we use condoms.
They have to be willing to take that risk.
That risk, even though now I'm on medication, it's basically 0%. But yeah, so it's just empathy from both sides.
Yeah, no, that does, like, that makes a lot of sense, and that's quite a nice sort of silver lining, I guess. And
yeah, it also goes the other way. Like, I can't be angry at people for not knowing about STIs. It's just like, okay, well, that just means we're like not a good fit. It's like, okay, whatever. It's really not a problem.
Yeah, it's not against those people. It's just maybe they're just not the people for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh yeah, have you ever thought, you know how you said like that guy that was like rubbing your vagina quite vigorously, and you were like, oh, this is gonna give me an outbreak. Like, have you ever thought about or like, has anyone even asked, like, you know, when you disclose and like you are like, oh, if you want to ask any questions, like, feel free. Has anyone ever asked, or have you ever said like, oh, like, friction kind of makes it worse, or like maybe if we do this, like a little bit more of this rather than this, it would be better? Or like,
yeah, no, I did say to that guy, like, I can't, like, my vagina can't take any more because the friction is really not good. And I kept being like, oh, can we use lube? Because I bought lube for the first time.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, I think he just didn't really get it, but that's fine, whatever. And then yeah, with other people, I've said like, oh, this would be better. Yeah, I think it's kind of like made me have to fulfill my goal of communication. Be like, oh, do you mind if I do this? And having to be like confident when I say to someone I have herpes, like in the middle of a sexual situation. I feel like anything after that is like fine.
Yeah, you feel like I can do anything.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. So yeah, and I feel like I'm just at a good place with it now.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, but it was definitely
I'm proud of you, girl.
Thanks, baby. It was definitely a roller coaster. It was just not okay for a while.
You like are so, I feel like you got over it so quick. Like I feel like it would have, if it would have been me, or I don't know, well I don't know what I would have been like in that situation, but like honestly I feel like you've dealt with it very well. I can't fault you, really.
I still haven't met anyone else who has herpes or knows they have it.
Yeah, that's weird.
Apart from my ex.
Yeah, the amount of people that just don't, that must just not know.
Yeah, so 70% of people by the time they're 25 have it. But of all the people that have one strain of herpes, 2 in 3 people don't know that they have it.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
We're literally walking around a herpes incubator. But this is, that's what I mean, as in like it's not even a thing, because like once the thing is the majority, then like
yeah, exactly. Like it's so inescapable that I don't know. And that is like one perspective that I've seen on the herpes Reddit thread, for example, people being like, oh, I'm kind of glad I have it because like now I can't get it again, you know. Like, and there's this whole push to get a vaccine for herpes, but people are like, literally, what is the point? Because what if you just get it again, you know, because not everyone's going to get the vaccine, so it's still going to be passing around, like,
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, but anyway, enough about herpes. I feel I don't know, should we just talk about like sex education and like how we think it should be taught instead?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, like, my ending question was like, how do you think like we can realistically be safer about sex and like have safer sex and know more about STIs and stuff? So I guess give us a little bit hand in hand.
It is one of those things that you do kind of just have to live it, because obviously we lived it. We got chlamydia and we didn't really care, and that's fine, but there is like another level of education that needs to happen in terms of like the emotional effects of it, rather than just like scaring people into thinking that everything is the worst case, to the extent that they're like in denial about the fact that they could get it.
Yeah. And
also it should just be more centered on like get tested rather than don't get an STI.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, like get tested rather than STIs are bad and like avoid them at all costs, and just promote like just being safer rather than like, if you have sex, this is what will happen. You know? It's like, if you do get an STI, like, don't worry, nothing bad will happen. Like, this is what you can do.
I think teaching how to like talk about, like communicate about protection and just pregnancy, everything to do with sex would be good, because I mean that would come along with consent education, but also just like, how do you bring up those things with someone, especially when you're young? It's kind of scary, because you don't want to seem like uncool or whatever.
And I was genuinely just thinking like, why, like what could I have told myself like at that age that I know, because like now I would never have done that, but it's like, how can you tell 18-year-old Maria in a way that she will like listen and hear you? And I do feel like when you are younger and like going into the world of sex, like just around like the last like teenage years of school or whatever, I feel like the cool thing to do is to not care and like to be irresponsible, and like you kind of have to act like you're so nonchalant about everything. So I don't know whether like you can just like make that go away, but I think just remember that like sexual health is still your health, and like you should still like you should always put your health first. But I mean that's still kind of useless advice, because I just hear that and be like, shut up.
Yeah, even though it's not the end of the world if you get an STI, just try not to.
Yeah, and you can get you can get condom cards.
Yeah.
Like, can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, so there's this thing in the UK called C cards, which you can get the card from like various pharmacies. You just type it into Google and there's like a website and you can put your postcode in, and you can get free condoms up until you're 25 or something, which is really good, and I feel like more people should know about. But also a lot of people do say that free condoms are really shit, which is like, yeah, but I mean free condoms are better than no condoms at the end of the day. So yeah, but just at least be prepared, and also because you don't want to be spending loads of money on condoms when you're younger. Like that's just a fucking pain.
Or you can get free condoms from the clinic.
Yeah, from the clinic, but that is still like the shit free condoms.
Yeah,
they still do the job that needs to be done at the end of the day.
I think like if it's a stranger, be safe. Get tested regularly, because I mean then if you do have something, then at least you know.
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you're getting tested regularly, like that's a good place to start, you know.
Yeah, that's the best place.
And we said we were going to talk about like the whole like going to the clinic process, and I feel like we kind of didn't, but I did want to say like a lot of them like it's just walk in, and then a lot of them like you do have to make an appointment. So literally just Google like sex clinic near me or like something like that, and then the nearest ones will come up in a list, and then if you click on that website you can see whether you have to book or you can walk in. Like it's it's really not as hard as like it seems. Like you honestly just have to turn up somewhere and like people will basically direct you on where to go.
Yeah,
like,
or order an at-home STI kit. There are so many. SH24 do one. That's Student Health 24.
Yeah, true. If you don't want to like
go somewhere.
Yeah.
And loads of student health services do them as well. And we used to go, like, all our friends used to go to the clinic together, which, looking back on it, is, like, quite a strange thing that we did. We're so quirky like that. But, like, I feel like that was a good way to do it. We just all went together. And, like, then you don't have to sit around the whole time feeling, like, out of place or anxious or whatever. You're just like with your friends and it's like we all have sex, we're all here. You know. This one time in Bristol, sorry, this is kind of unrelated, but this one time in Bristol my friend and I were like, we should go find a clinic because I thought I had like chlamydia or something. And this is another thing as well, is outside of London, sexual health clinics are so hard to find, and also they take way longer to give you your results back. And I think we just really took that for granted in London. We didn't even realise. So yeah, we're like looking for this sexual health clinic in Bristol in like the centre, and we just ended up in a church. And it was like the most ironic thing that's ever happened. And we were just walking around this church and this guy comes out and he was like, "Are you okay?" And we were like, "Oh, we're definitely not in the right place." We were like, this is divine intervention into my sex life.
You dirty hole.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Honey made like so many posts about STDs, like so many specifically about herpes, and like because when you know like how she said when she found out like no one really told her any information, so she basically just had to find this all on her own.
Yeah.
So she has done it. So if any of you get a herpes diagnosis, you know where to go and you don't have to do all that research.
Yeah, but I did it on like all the STIs and you can see the treatment process and like the symptoms. Also, I feel like we haven't mentioned this, but there are so many STIs that are symptomless, And again, why it's really important to get tested. Don't just think that like because you don't have any symptoms you're fine.
Yeah, no, that is a very important thing that I feel like we should have mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like a lot of people just never get tested because just don't think it's gonna happen. They don't feel any type of way, but yeah, nothing necessarily has to be like bubbling up or like smoking out of your vag or something. Is that all you have to say, hun?
Yeah, I mean, I have so much more to say, but honestly, if anyone wants to like talk to me about herpes, the amount of stuff that I have read, the amount of research that I have done, I will just have a conversation with you about it. Or if you just want to talk about anything in general, sexual health related, I'm obviously not a professional. However, every time I go to the clinic, I'm like, I know everything you're about to tell me, so maybe I am. But yeah, we should just like all talk about it.
You don't even need
more.
to look for a sex clinic. You've got honey.
I'll inspect your vagina for you. No, I'm joking. Don't send me pictures of
No,
your
but
vagina.
we should start like a vagina support group almost, or like a sex support group in which we just ask like sexual health questions and all help each other out.
Yeah,
you know?
Genuinely. I reckon the amount of stuff that we've all learned collectively would just be like great. And this is why we should just talk to our friends about it. And I keep just disclosing to random people that I meet, like friends, to like see how they're gonna react and just see if we can have a conversation about it. And usually it's just like really chill and they're like, oh yeah, I had chlamydia once, or like, oh, what's that like, you know? So yeah, just normalize STIs.
Yeah, 100%.
Normalize sex. That's what the whole podcast is about. But yeah, thank you guys for listening as always, and don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget you can now watch us on YouTube in our lovely studio that is causing us so much stress. And follow us on social media at Sextras Podcast and leave us a review. And yeah, we'll see you next week. Bye.
You've been listening to Sextras, presented by Honey Jane Wyatt and Maria Jose Hayodatiyi, produced by Mabel Productions.